Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back. Today's Daf Yomi is Pesachim Kuf Tesvav, and we are 8 lines from the top of the Amud. It says the Gemara on the last word of that 8th line, Amar Ravina, Amar li Rav Misharshia, Bereder Rav Nasan. Ravina said like this: Rav Misharshia, the son of Rav Nasan, told me, Hachi Hamar Amar Hillel. This is what Hillel said. The Ran points out that Hillel here is the Hillel Amoira as opposed to the Tana Hillel. So what did Hillel tell us? Hachi Amar Hillel Mishmei de Gemara. He said it in the name of the Bnei HaYeshiva who accepted this halacha from their Rabbeim. So it was an established halacha in the yeshiva as follows: Lo nichrech inish matzah umorer bahadi adodi v'nechel. One should not wrap together his matzah and his morer v'nechel and eat them together as one. Mishum desvirulon, because we hold matzah bizman hazeh d'oraisa. Bizman hazeh, nowadays when we have no korban pesach. You see, the Torah says that the korban pesach is meant to be eaten together. Al matzos umurorim yachlu, together with matzah and morer. And therefore, bizman hazeh, when we have no pesach, we're lacking in the mitzvah. Despite the fact that we have no Pesach, says the Gemara, matzah still remains intact. Matzah bizman hazeh d'oraisa. However, morer is different. Umorer d'rabbanan, because morer, as we're going to learn later on in the parak, is dependent on the korban Pesach. So when there is no Pesach, min haTorah, there's no chiyuv of achilas morer. And therefore nowadays, matzah indeed is still the oraisa. Morer, however, is only the rabbanan. So what's going to happen if you wrap them together and eat them as one? The flavor of that morer, the sharp flavor coming from the morer, will invalidate the matzah, will be mavatal the tam matzah in your mouth. It's going to be batal and have no significance, and therefore you won't be yotze your matzah. Va'asi morer d'rabbanan. The taste of that morer, the sharp taste coming from the morer, which is only consumed midrabbanan, right? You only eat it because of the mitzvah d'rabbanan. That will come along and umevatel, and nullify, cancel out umevatel matzah d'oraisa, cancel the ta'am matzah, which is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Now, as the Gemara explains, generally, if both mitzvahs, let's say the matzah and the morer, are of equal footing, they're equal in value, they're both d'oraisa or both d'rabbanan, then there's no concern of this happening, because one mitzvah, at least according to one shita, one mitzvah won't be mavatal the other. That's just the way it is. A mitzvah is a positive entity. It's a key of mitzvah, the Rashbam says. It's not going to be mavatal the other mitzvah. You can have matzah more together as one. Each one has chashivas, and even though it seems to be overwhelmed by the other one, it's okay. It still holds its ground. But that's only when both mitzvahs are of equal value. They carry equal weight. But when there's an imbalance here, suppose you have matzah, which is a mitzvah min haTorah, now relative to the mitzvah's matzah min haTorah, morer is really a non-mitzvah entity. Right? Because min haTorah, it's not a mitzvah. It's as though he had a matzah with a potato. And the flavor of that potato will be mavatal the matzah. Explains the Gemara, Vafilu l'mad amar, mitzvahs ein mavatles zuazu. Even according to that shita, which is going to be coming up in the Gemara soon, that one mitzvah cannot be mavatal the other. Hanamil, that's only said d'oraisa b'd'oraisa. If you have one mitzvah min haTorah together with another one, they're of equal value and won't be mavatal each other. They won't interfere with each other. Or likewise, if they're both d'rabbanan, so since they're equal in value, they don't interfere with each other. But if you have one d'oraisa, such as matzah bizman hazeh, u'd'rabbanan, and the other one is only d'rabbanan as morer bizman hazeh, then we have a concern. Osi d'rabbanan u'mevatale l'doraisa. The tam matzah, the tam morer, which is only mitzvah d'rabbanan, will come along and be mevatal the mitzvah d'oraisa, the tam matzah, which is a min haTorah. And therefore, you're not meant to wrap them together, even according to the shita, which is generally not concerned with mitzvahs being mevatel each other, but it doesn't apply in this case because they're unequal. You have one real mitzvah, not Torah, and the other one, in proportion to this one, relative to this one, is not a mitzvah. It's only the Rabbanan. So the matzah d'oraisa will become affected by the tam morer, which overwhelms it, and you will not be makayim the mitzvahs matzah min haTorah. Let's take a look at the Rashbam. Second line from the top of the Rashbam. Matzah bezman hazeh d'oraisa u'morer d'Rabbanan. The Gemara will explain this later. V'tam hafarsh b'shili perk. Now, afilu l'mad who says that mitzvahs are not b'matal each other. The Rashbam explains why. The kivan dechi hadodi ninu, since they're both of equal value, kulu kiyum mitzvahs ninu v'lam vatli hadodi. Each one is considered a kiyum mitzvah. A mitzvah doesn't interfere with the other mitzvah, but that's provided that they're both mitzvahs. However, in this case, where in the context of mitzvahs d'oraisa, murder is non-existent, and therefore will come along and be mevatel. Umevatel lo l'tam matzah d'oraisa. Our Tosfos in Zvachim has a kasha. We have halachos, we have guidelines of what constitutes bittul. Here we have two things which are unequal in taste. Min b'she'ein minah. Generally, we say that in order to be mevatel something in that manner, it has to totally overwhelm it. It needs to be batel b'shishim. Here you have plenty of matzah in your mouth. So what if there's some morer interfering? It's not going to be mevatel the matzah, which is a different min, and the flavor of the matzah is still somewhat felt. So Tosfos Zvachim says morer is different due to its sharpness. It has that charifus, and it will overwhelm the matzah, despite the fact that there's plenty of matzah here. And the morer, being that it has that merirus, the bitterness and the sharpness, is going to affect the matzah to the extent that will consider it non-existent, and he will not be mekayim the mitzvah. Therefore, says the Gemara, you want to have them separately. First your matzah, then your morer. Don't wrap them together. Proceeds the Gemara, mantana the shamasle. Now we just mentioned there is a shita that holds generally mitzvahs are not mevatel each other. Who is that tana? Mantana the shamasle mitzvahs ein mevatles zuasu. Hillel the tana who lived at the end of the second Beis Hamikdash. He was the Nasi. The Sanya, as we find in the following brisa, Amru Olav al Hillel. The following was said regarding Hillel. He would conduct himself as follows. He would wrap together the Pesach, the matzah, and the myrrh, and eat them together as one. Shenemar al matzos u'murorim yoichluhu. The pasuk there speaks about the korban Pesach and concludes al means im, together with the matzos and the myrrh yoichluhu, which indicates that it's all together as one wrap. Apparently, according to Hillel, when we have several mitzvahs, you can join them together. There's no interference from one mitzvah to the other. But as we just explained, that applies only when all three mitzvahs are of equal value, such as in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. We have three mitzvahs d'oraisa, Pesach, Matzah, Mar. Certainly, there's no interference. However, bezman hazeh, even Hillel would agree, don't do this, because, as we said, the matzah is min haTorah, and the Mar is only the Rabbanan, and we'll go ahead and negate the matzah. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, cholkin olav chaverev al Hillel. He meant to know that this sheet of Hillel is not unanimous. His colleagues disagreed with him. They held that mitzvahs are mevatel each other. You cannot put together two mitzvahs despite the fact that they're both equal in value. This sanya, as we learned in the Bryce. Perhaps you meant to wrap them together, just as Hillel would eat them. Talmud Loimar, the pasuk says, "Al matzos u'murorim yoichluhu." The fact that the word yoichluhu was written with a suffix there, hu, vav hey vav, what does that tell us? Afilu zebifnei atzmai v'zebifnei atzmai. It's a singular term, as the Rashbam explains. It's coming to tell us yoichluhu, him, each one on his own. And this appears to be the other shita that holds that you're not meant to wrap them together because mitzvahs are mevatel each other. Ask the Gemara, Maskal Ravashi, Yochi Mayafilu. if this brisa represents the shitois hacholkim on Hillel, the Rabbanan hold that you cannot wrap them together. Why does the brisa say you can even have them separately? Right? Take a look at the brisa. It says, perhaps I need to wrap them together. No. The fact that it says Yechlahu teaches us afilu zevefnei atzma. It sounds like it's perfectly fine to wrap them together. If you wish, you can have them separately. What do you see in this brisa that mitzvahs are mavatli each other? You don't see it at all. Elam Ravashi says, Rashi, really, this brisa is not reflecting that other shita. Hai Tana, Hachik Tani. The brisa is simply saying as follows: perhaps the only way to be yaitze the mitzvah is only elam ken korchem asachas. You're not yaitze unless you wrap them together, and have them as one. Just as Hillel would do. Perhaps that's the only way to be makayim. That's what the pasuk says. Al matzos umuroirim yachlu, which indicates that each one can be separate. Afilu zebifnei atzmai v'zebifnei atzmai. The brisa is not saying you cannot have them together. You don't need to wrap them as one, as Hillel held. Rather, you have the option. You have two choices. You can, if you wish. You can wrap them together, and if you wish, you can have them separately. So it's certainly another shita. This is not Hillel, but we don't see any shita which disagrees with the concept of mitzvahs eimim atlezuzu. Even this shita of the Rabbanon hold you could wrap them together, because since we're speaking Bezman HaMikdash, when they were both min HaTorah, they're not mavatli each other. Now, as Rashbam points out, of course there is another shita, a shita which disagrees with the concept of Hillel that mitzvahs are not mavatli each other. Rabbi Yehuda stated that as a fact. There is another shita, but Rav Ashi was simply having a difficult time learning that in this brisa. He disagreed with Rabbi Yehuda that this brisa is the source of that shita. No, that shita is not reflected in this brisa. Even the Rabbanan in this brisa agree in concept with Hillel that mitzvahs are not about each other if they're on equal footing, of equal value. They simply hold we don't have to insist on eating them together. If you want, you could have them separately. That's also fine. So, in conclusion, according to the Rashbam, we have three shitas. Hillel requires kricha b'vasachas. You need to wrap together the Pesach, matzah, mar, and eat them as one. Al matzahs emurer yochlehu. It's one unit. We have the second shita, the Rabbanon. You don't have to. There are actually two ways to have your seder. You can have them together, and you can eat them separately. And we have a third shita which says you may not wrap them together, because one will be mevatel the other. Even mitzvahs interfere with each other. You want to have a pure, unaffected mitzvah. The matzah needs to be pure tam matzah, without any interference from anything else. Concludes the Gemara. Okay, so what do we do? Halacha l'maisa. Hashta deloy itmar hilchasa like Hillel like Rabbanan. Now that we don't have a halachic conclusion, whether to follow Hillel's view or the Rabbanan's view. So what do? According to Hillel, you have to wrap them together. According to the Rabbanan, the third shita, you may not wrap them together. So what do? Says the Gemara, very simple. Mevarach al achilas matzah. As we do today, you take some matzah, you make a bracha asher kitshana mitzvah al achilas matzah v'achil, and he eats it separately. V'hadu mevarach al achilas marer v'achil. He takes some marer, he makes a bracha asher kitshana al achilas marer and eats it. V'hadar achil matzah v'chasa b'had yadadi b'loi brach, and then he wraps together, he eats together matzah, together with chasa, with lettuce, with marer, b'had yadadi, both together. B'loi bracha, without making any bracha, because he was already yotzei matzah, he was already yotzei marer, so he has it without a bracha, and it's zeicher l'mikdash ki Hillel. This is a remembrance for the way Hillel used to do it in the time of Beis HaMikdash. In fact, we actually say zeicher l'mikdash ki Hillel. The Bir Halacha brings that perhaps he meant to say it after you eat it, so it shouldn't be a hefsek between the brachas, the achilas matzah and achilas marer. to the achila of koirach. In any case, that's the solution to the dilemma. Should we have them separate or together? We do both. First separately and then together. And this way we have all the shittas covered. And now Tosfos explains like this. He explains an interesting cheshbon of the Gemara. What was the Gemara's problem? What should we do? We have Hillel who says put them together. We have the Rabbanan who say keep them separate. So what are we meant to do? And Tosfos explains like this. Because according to Hillel, it was very simple. What we would do, we'd go ahead and have matzah separately, right? We makayim the mitzvahs matzah independently, and then we would wrap together the matzah with the maror. Why? Because although he was already yotzei mitzvahs matzah, how can he take the maror, which is still a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, even bizman hazeh, and put some more matzah with it? The matzah now is not a mitzvah. It's like putting a potato with the maror. It's going to be mevatel the maror. So the says no, because according to Hillel, the concept of wrapping together is so important. It's so vital. You see that he required it bizman hamikdash. So the Chacham, even bizman hazeh, established a custom of doing something zeicher lemikdash kehilel. And it is a mitzvah to take another piece of matzah and have it together with your maror. So eating the matzah is really a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, as well as the maror, which is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. There's no competition, because they're both mitzvahs of equal value. So again, according to Hillel, there will be no confusion, no dilemma. Take a piece of matzah, make your bracha on that, b'yotzei the mitzvahs matzah min haTorah, and then take another piece of matzah with a piece of maror. The maror is mitzvah d'Rabbanan, and having the matzah with the maror, that as well is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's kricha, zeichel l'mikdash. Therefore, there won't be a bittul. You're okay. But according to the Rabbanan, who don't require the kricha to take place during the Zman HaMikdash, they didn't require kricha. So now we have a dilemma. We're faced with a problem. Because if we take a piece of matzah, and we have it first, now we're yotzei the mitzvah d'oraisa. Then we take the maror. Right, you proceed to maror, which is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan b'zman hazeh. Now you want to do a wrap, zeichel l'mikdash. You can't do that, because the matzah is a non-necessary entity. You don't need it. And Tosfos explains because since even bizman hamikdash, even according to the Shitas Rabbanan who say you can do kricha, but since it wasn't mandatory, it's unlikely that Chachamim bizman hazeh would require you to do something zeicha to that. You didn't have to do it even. You could have done it separately even during the Mikdash time. So there's no point in making a zeicher, wrapping something today, zeicher l'Mikdash, when even during the Mikdash time you didn't have to do it. So once he had his matzah, in which case he was yotzei mitzvahs matzah, now he proceeds to the maror, which is still a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, but he wants to do it with kricha, with matzah. Well, the matzah is optional, it's reshus. It's not a mitzvah. It's not even a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. So in effect, he's taking a potato, mixing it with his maror, which is mevatel, that maror. And that's the Gemara's dilemma here. What should we do? Should we do one way or the other? Meaning, should we have it separate or together? And doing it together, according to Rabban, is a problem. Says the Gemara, the easiest way to approach it is have the matzah separate, the maror separate, and then both together, zeichel and migdash kehilel. So even according to the Rabbanah, you're okay because you had the matzah separate and the maror separate. You already yotzei, and then you went ahead and you wrapped them together to address the kricha of Hillel, zeichel and migdash kehilel. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rav Ashi. Kol shetibuli b'mashke, any type of food which is dipped in liquid, tzorach netilas yodayim, one must wash his hands prior to handling that food. Explains the Rashbam 5 lines from the bottom. Kol shetibuli b'mashke kegon yorak b'kutach b'chometz. Suppose you have vegetables dipped in kutach, this dip which contains milk, which of course is one of the shiva mashkin. Cholav is one of the 7 primary liquids which have the ability to be makabel tumah, oy b'chometz or vinegar. So if it's dipped in vinegar, which is a wine derivative, and therefore has the same halacha as wine, as considered something which is makabel tumah. So if you're handling that type of vegetable, tzorach netilas yadayim, he needs to wash his hands mishum mashka on account of that liquid. What's the concern? Shayadayim shniyos. We learned this in the beginning of the Gemara Shabbos. Chachamim made a gzera of stam yodayim, unwashed hands are considered Thu May. Rashi explains the concern is because it's unbefitting truma to handle it with unwashed, unclean hands, and therefore the Chachamim established that in any unwashed hands have a din of sheni l'tuma, and if you touch truma with it, it becomes pasal. Now, v'chol ha'paisel es truma, anything that has the ability to disqualify truma, such as these unwashed hands, which have a din of a sheni, mitame mashkim li'es tchila. Since Chacham established that this yodayim is a sheni pertaining to truma, it can be paisel truma. We know that anything that could be paisel truma, if it should come into contact with mashkin, there's a special gzera because mashkin are more liable to become tamei. They're easily mitame. They don't need hechsher. They don't need a preparation. The Chacham said any type of tumah, even a sheni l'tumah, which touches mashkim, what happens is the mashkim now become a rishon l'tumah. They leapfrog. They go up a step. And what's wrong with that? Well, the mashkin in this case, which came into contact with his hands, unwashed hands, they're a sheni. They make the mashkim a rishon. The rishon in turn will be matame the yorak and make it a sheni. He's eating something which is tamei. Tosfos learns a bit differently. He says that he's going to be tamei the mashkim themselves, and the mashkim ingested by the person will make him tamei. And that's why we have the halacha that any time one handles something which is dipped in mashka, the netilas yadayim is in order. Amar Rav Papa Shmamina. We learn from this halacha, meaning the fact that the Chachamim Pesach at night require a person to be noitel yadav, one has to wash his hands before the first serving of vegetables, which are dipped, right, before what we call karpas. Says Rav Papa, apparently, since there is a concern of coming into contact with the mashka, and that's why you need to wash your hands, what does that prove? Shema mino haychasa, this lettuce. Tzorach l'shikui b'charosis. It must be dipped, embedded into the charosis dip. It's not enough just to slightly touch it. You have to actually sink it in. Mishum kappa, on account of kappa, the Rashbam will explain for us what that is. And that's the point of taking your chazeres. Meaning, suppose you didn't have celery. You had no sha'ar yerakos for that first serving, and you have only chazeres today. We learned yesterday, you're going to have 2 portions of chazeres. And on account of the chazeres, which is going to be sunk into the charosis to mitigate the effect of the kafa, or some type of dangerous phenomenon, I'm going to see soon. On account of that, the Chachamim masakin til sedayim, by that first serving of vegetables. So in this case, it might be chazeres, in which case it'll need to be embedded into the kafa, which contains liquid. And coming into contact with liquid with unwashed hands creates a concern. Says Rav Papa, apparently, we have a right from here that the chazeres must be embedded deeply into the kafa. You can't just touch it on the surface. You have to put it inside. Therefore, his hands will have to come in contact with the mashkin, and therefore netilas yadayim is in place. Let's just stop for a moment before we continue and see the Rashbam right here. On the top line, tzarach l'shkui b'charosis b'shum kaf. Says the Rashbam, what is kafa? Eres. Some sort of sharp sap. Shechazeres yesh boi eres k'derech habetzon. Chazeres, which is used for mar, contains within it this eres, this sharp and bitter sap, like onions. Now, because you have to sink the chazeres into the charosis, which will undo the effect of the eres, apparently the sweetness, the acidity of the charosis, which is a mixture of crushed fruits and vinegar, that will counteract the effect of the eres. And since that's necessary, and you have to actually sink it in, that's why netilas yadayim is required. Come on, that's why you have to wash your hands by that first serving of vegetables. Because he's going to come into contact with the liquid. When he dips the chazeres into the charosis. According to this Pshat Rashbam, eres is the sharp and dangerous sap found in the chazeres. Continues the Rashbam with another pshat on the word kaf. V'Rabbeinu Chanan al Pirish, kappa is the teilas, a worm. We find worms in lettuce, and the charosis will kill. The effect of the sharpness will kill the worm, in which case it's going to protect him from danger. The Sani b'Trumis, we find in a brisa in Trumis that kafa is a worm unique to chazeres. Hataylam shebi kora ilanis, v'sa kafa shebi yarak. We have kafa in vegetables. You have chushin sheba chaymetz. You have chushin found in chaymetz. V'sheba yain mutar. The brisa there tells us that there's no concern about eating, about consuming these insects, because the halacha is, since it hadn't left the parent fruit or vegetable, it was not sheretz ala eretz, it was born within the vegetable and stayed there, you can eat it together with the vegetable. Sinna v'mesanenes asur. So all these things, the tayloim and the trees, the kafa and the yerot, the chushin and the chaymes and yain, are totally mutter. However, sinna masnenes, if he sifted them out with a strainer, in which case he took them out of their habitat, asur. The kivan the parish mokim revisi, since it was taken out of its place of its habitat, havalik sheretz hasheretz alaretz. So in the vegetable itself, it's still mutter. It hadn't left its place, its abode, but once it left its area, that's called sheretz hasheretz alaretz, and therefore it's also kedama b'shili alatrefes v'ikar. Rashbam likes this pshat better. The point of the charosis is to kill the bug within the lettuce. Now Tosfos brings a shita. You see, the Rashbam tells us that you can have the teilas. There's no concern with eating insects because it's still embedded within the vegetable. It never left the vegetable. What then is the concern? It's a danger concern, a sakana. Having live insects inside you is a danger. Therefore, the charosis is coming to address that. Now, Tosfos brings a shita of Shmuel, brought the Gemara Chulin, who holds that even naturally occurring insects, even if they are still within the parent fruit, are going to be also. Says Tosfos, if that's the case, how is Shmuel going to eat chazeres on Pesach? So you'll say, I'll check his lettuce. Well, if that's the case, then you don't need charosis. There are no bugs, there's no need to have charosis. So Tosfos concludes that perhaps most lettuce does not contain insects, at least in those days. So when it comes to the issur of eating teilaim, you follow Rav. You can safely assume this lettuce is free of bug-free, naturally bug-free lettuce. However, on account of sakana, when danger is involved, the Gemara in Chulin tells us, Chamira sakanta miyisur, you have to be more conscientious when it comes to matters of danger, of sakana, even more than Isser. And therefore, although it's mutter to have this lettuce, because we assume there are no insects there, but even for that minute chance that there might be an insect, a live insect there, you have to address that concern, and therefore charosis is used to be mamius the insects and avoid any possible chance of placing oneself in danger. So, while on the topic of bugs, let's just summarize the halacha that a naturally occurring bug, meaning if it's inside the fruit, it never left the fruit, it was hashed inside and stayed in there, it's mutter. If it left the fruit or the vegetable, then it's aser. Tosfos tells us that if roiv yirakos have no vegetables, meaning most of this variety is proven to be free of vegetables, then it's mutter min atayra. There's one thing that needs to be pointed out. There is a Rashba who tells us that all the true min atayra, we follow roiv. But when we have a situation where it's a miyut hamatzah, it's a commonly found phenomena, although it's still in the minority, but it's something, when you see it, you're not surprised. Well, you're not in shock. It's something which is pretty common. He says, Midrabana, you need bedika. You can't say, well, I'll be samech on the roiv. And that's the basis of today's, the halacha today, that it's become more and more known, the requirement, the chiyuv to check your food for any insects found therein. There's a new sefer just published now, checking food, pi halacha, for Ivayna Yisrael. He's the world expert on food infestation. And the point is that lately, in the more recent years, this phenomenon has become more and more common. And, it's attributed primarily to the fact that they stopped or at least lessened considerably the amount of pesticides which is sprayed on crops due to health reasons, etc. So that actually precipitated an increase in infestation. So it's more common today. And based on this Rashba, we have to check any type of food which is known to even have a miut hamotzi, which is commonly interpreted as being 10%. This is the Mishkanos Yaakov. It says that 10% is considered miut hamotzi. So for instance, if you have a shaila, is it considered miut hamotzi? You would take at random 10 items of that type, check them all, and if they're all free, then you're okay. But if one of them, at least one of those 10, have been found with bugs, then that's considered a miut hamotzi, a commonly found minority, and badika's in place. And that's where we get the whole concept of checking lettuce for bugs. And of course today it's very convenient. They have the new products. They keep on coming out with different types of bug-free lettuce, which is indeed very convenient and very helpful in avoiding the isser of Teilayim on Pesach. Okay, continues the Gemara. Let's go back to the top. Rav Papa brings a raya from the fact that the Chachamim established the din of netilas yadayim Pesach at night by that first serving of vegetables. What does that show you? That the vegetable will come into contact with liquid. And apparently, you have to take that chazeres and not just give it a slight touch with the charesis, but actually sink it into the charesis, in which case you'll come into contact with the liquid. And therefore, netilas yadayim is required. Tzorach l'shkuya b'charesis. You have to embed it in the charesis mishum kafa, on account of the kafa, whether it's the sap or the bugs. Because if you would say that, no, perhaps you don't have to actually sink it in, just bringing it very close or just in slight contact is enough to scare away the bug or to kill the bug or to negate the harmful effect of that eris, of that sap. If you maintain that that's enough, you don't have to sink it in, netilas yadayim, why would you have to have netilas yadayim? There's no contact. Holay naga, he's not touching the liquid. Says the Gemara, perhaps, v'dilma, maybe lo'elam e'malach, lo'itzarach l'shkuya. You don't have to actually dig it into the charesis. V'kafa me'reichamayis, and the kafa will die simply on account of the sharp smell of the charesis. Ela lomali netilas yadayim. So why then do you have to wash your hands? Dilma meshakule, perhaps somebody will sink it in, but it doesn't mean that it's necessary and required. V'amar Papa, another halacha regarding murder. Lo'inishi inish murder b'charesis. Even though you're going to dip the murder in charesis, don't have it linger in there. Don't have it sit in there. Dilma agav chal yedetavim. Perhaps due to the sweetness or sharpness of the seasoning found in your charesis, Rashbam says they would put apples in there. That sweetness will negate the bitterness of the murder. It's going to be mevatel the bitterness of the murder. Oh, but inon tamar v'leka. Murder needs to be bitter. You have to re-experience the bitterness of Mitzrayim. If it's not going to be bitter, it's not going to be yotzei. So just dip it in and take it out. Rav Chizda took Rabbana Ukva for a walk with Darash, and he began to teach him as follows. Not al yadav b'tivul rishon. Although one already washed his hands when he's doing that first dip, when he got that first serving of vegetables, noitel yadav b'tivul sheni. He has to rewash his hands in honor of the second serving of vegetables. We're assuming that we're speaking by the Seder. So although he already washed his hands, right, we say Kaddish Urchatz, he already washed his hands for the karpas, he has to rewash for the Suda. Now Tosfos says that Tibul Sheni is Lav Davka. Of course, the second washing takes place before Hamoitzi. The Gemara is simply using a double term. Although he already washed for the first tibul, he washes for the second tibul. And the chiddush is that the first washing cannot be effective for the suda that follows. You have to rewash your hands. So that was the halacha he taught him. Amru Rabbanan Kamed Rav Papa. The Rabbanan presented their interpretation in front of Rav Papa. Apparently this halacha that we said that double washing is required was said elsewhere, not at the Seder. Meaning elsewhere, ordinary weekday, he sits down to have a dip. He washes his hands, and then, turns around and says, I want to have another dip. Has to rewash his hands because he didn't have it in mind initially. That explains the halacha why double washing is required. But if you would think that it was said over here regarding the Leila Seder, why would you have to wash your hands twice? He knows that there's a Suda coming up. And when he washed his hands initially, he had everything in mind. Why would he have to wash his hands twice? He already washed his hands once at the beginning of the Seder, and that counts for the entire Seder. Rav Papa responded to them, just the opposite. Adrab, if anything, in the reverse is true. Apparently this halacha, that you need to wash your hands twice, was said over here by the Leil HaSeder. Because if you say it was said for elsewhere, why would somebody have 2 dips? That's not commonly done. You have 1 salad and you're done. When would it be applicable? Apparently, it was in reference to the Leil HaSeder, where you have 2 servings of vegetables. Okay, so what do you want to say? It's applied to the Leil HaSeder. That takes us back to the kasha. So why do you have to wash your hands twice? The initial washing had everything in mind. He already washed his hands once at the beginning of the Seder. Amri, the answer is like this. Because since he needs to say the Haggadah and Halal, at least a portion of the Halal, between that first washing and the Su'ud, Dilma Asuchi Aschei Ladate, the Naga concerned that he was Masiach Das, he got sidetracked, and perhaps inadvertently touched something unclean, and therefore he needs to wash his hands again. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rav, Bola Matzah Yotza. Suppose one swallowed his matzah without chewing it. His yaitze. That is also considered achila. However, Bola Marer Lo Yotza. If he simply swallowed his marer, he's not yaitze. Why this difference? Let's take a look at the Rashbam. We have the narrow lines of the Rashbam, and right before they widen, 4 lines before they widen, we have the words Bola Matzah. V'lo Lasa. He swallowed his matzah without chewing. Yotza. Sharekim be'erev teichel matzahs. Torah says, eat your matzahs. Shareachila. For him, this is an achila. He chose to swallow it. That's called achila. Umil lechatchila tam matzah b'ina. Says the Rashbam lechatchila. Preferably, you meant to relate to the flavor, the taste of the matzah. You meant to chew it. However, if you swallowed it, he's yaitze as well. Moshe Feinstein brings that this halacha applies to a person who can eat, an elderly person who may go ahead and crumble up his matzah and swallow it. It's called an achila. But Bala Marer Lo Yotza. Why the Be'inan Tam Marer V'Leka? You need to have that tam. You'd experience the bitterness of the marer, and you don't have it in this case when you just swallowed it. The Mishum Hachi Kavod Rachman, because the Torah was makbid on this. Lemarer Es Piv Shel Eichel. To embitter the mouth of the eater, to experience the bitterness of Mitzrayim. Zeichel Levayimarus Chayim. Therefore, swallowing does not conform. Again, says the Gemara, Marava, Bala Matzah Yotza, Bala Marer Lo Yotza. Bala Matzah Umarer. What if he wrapped the matzah together with marer and swallowed it together as one? Now, certainly the marer, he wasn't yotze, because it's no better than the first case. He swallowed marer. That's not considered a marer. The chiddush here will be that even if the marer joined the matzah together in the swallowing ceremony, he was yotze the matzah. Bala matzah marer, yidei matzah yotze, yidei marer lo yotze. So marer is not yotze, of course, because he didn't chew it, but the matzah is yotze, because even swallowed matzah is okay. Now there's a kasha, of course, because the marer should perhaps pose a chatzitza concern. It's interfering, it's getting in the way between the matzah and his throat. We'll get to that in a moment. First, let's see the next halacha. Korchan b'siv. Suppose he wrapped them in a sieve, in a grass. He wrapped the matzah, wrapped the marer, and swallowed it in that manner. Ubalan, and swallowed them. Afidei matzah namel yotza. In this case, he's not a yotza matzah, because at least in the first case there was some contact between the matzah and his throat. In this case, was wrapped in a sieve. That's not called achila. And therefore he's not even yotzei matzah in this manner. That takes us back to the early halacha. The previous halacha, we had the matzah and the myrrh together and swallow them as is. We learned that yidei matzah is yotzei. And the kasha is why? Why is this better than korchem b'siv? He wrapped it with some foreign entity. The myrrh here is getting in the way. It's intersecting between the matzah and his throat. So there's several approaches in the Mefarshim. We have the approach which is Rambam based, that it's different here. Pesach at night, matzah and myrrh are so closely related. They're close relatives. And they're meant to be with each other, and therefore myrrh won't interfere, won't get in the way of the matzah. That's the Rambam's shot. This is something unique to the Leila Seder. Meaning, although in this case he's not being yotzei, it says myrrh, but by their very nature, matzah and myrrh are closely related on Pesach at night, al matzah bar michlu, and therefore one of them won't pose a chatzitza for the other, and it's as though the matzah came into contact with his throat, even though there was myrrh in between. That's okay, and it's considered an achila. Rabbi Yehuda has a different approach, based on the halacha of min b'mina in chaytzis. When we have two items which are of the same min, the same nature, such as food, two types of food, even though one is matzah, one is myrrh, they're still both the same min, they're both oichel, and then a chaytzis for each other. Therefore, it says Rabbi Yehuda, even though the myrrh got in the way of the matzah, it's okay. The myrrh, which is the same min, it's min oichel, will not pose a chatzitza, will not create that barrier in front of the matzah, and it's as though the matzah actually came into contact with his throat and is considered a matzah achil. I tell you this as a kasha. We learned earlier that the tam of one food can negate the tam of the other. Right? So if the myrrh is only the rabbanon and the matzah is the raisa, it's going to be a vatal tam matzah. In this case, he's swallowing matzah and myrrh together. Is the myrrh serving any positive purpose here? No. He's not being yotzei with the myrrh. He can't swallow myrrh. So the myrrh has no significance. It's like a potato. And that should be mavatal the tam of matzah. Says Tosfos, bittul doesn't apply here. That only applies when you're chewing them together. Chewing extracts the flavor. For instance, the flavor of the myrrh, which will interfere with the flavor of the matzah. Right? The sharpness, the bitterness of the myrrh, we mavatal tam matzah, as we mentioned earlier. But in this case, you're just swallowing them together. In this case, bittul doesn't apply. There's nothing exuding forth from the myrrh which is going to be mavatal the matzah. And therefore, the Gemara says, even swallowing matzah and myrrh together, even in that case, he's yotzei mitzvah as matzah. Continues the Gemara, Omar of Simya bar Ashi. Matzah lifnei kol echad ve'echad. Suppose you have the head of household, who is the one that says the Haggadah. You have people around him. Do they all have to have their own portion of matzah, myrrh, and charoises? Yes, they do. Matzah lifnei kol echad ve'echad. Myrrh lifnei kol echad ve'echad. V'charoises lifnei kol echad ve'echad. Every person has to experience the Seder. It has to be tangible. He has to have his own personal matzah, myrrh, charoises placed before him. Tosfos says the reason is that the te'ima of the matzah should be in close proximity to the bracha. This was done to minimize the hefsek. This is the best way to do it. Have your own matzah, your own myrrh in front of you. So as soon as you hear the bracha coming from the one who is running the Haggadah, he'll be able to proceed and have his matzah, his myrrh. And that's why you have to have a separate portion of matzah, myrrh, charoises placed before every one of the guests. However, says the Gemara, Ve'ein oikunes hashulchan ela lifnei mi she'omer Haggadah. But the akiras shulchan ceremony, they would take away, we're speaking about individual tables, of course. Right? Every person had his own small table. And we learn in the Gemara that they used to remove the table. So after the first portion of vegetables, they used to go and be oikeres hashulchan, and this was to arouse the interest of the children, as we're going to see soon. This akiras hashulchan need not be done for everyone's table. In oikeres hashulchan elo lefnei mi she'omer Haggadah, you would only do it for the table belonging to the Omer Haggadah, the one that's running the show. Rav Huna Omer, Kulu Nami Lifnei Mi She'omer Haggadah. You don't have to give each guest an individual portion of matzah, bar, chazeres, and chareses. You give one to the head of household, the one that's Omer Haggadah, and that's enough. Just as they're yotzei by listening to his Haggadah, Shemei Ko'ena, which, by the way, the Shulchan Aruch Rav says is the most preferred way of conducting your seder, that the one running the seder should say the Haggadah and everybody listens in. He says it's B'roiv Am Hadras Melech. You have a multitude listening in and joining together in the same recitation. So the Omer Haggadah was only one. And just as he says the Haggadah on his own, and everybody listens, you only have to have one portion of matzah, mar, and charesis before him, and everybody's yotzei by listening and joining in the experience. The halacha follows Rav Huna. All we need is one set for the Omer Haggadah. Lama ikrin sal shulchan. Now, why do we move the table away? Amri the Rabbi Yanai, kadesh yakira tinoikas v'yishlu, so the children should notice and begin asking questions. What's going on? Taking away the table. We haven't yet had our meal. What's going on here? And this will get them interested and allow them to be drawn into the conversation. And this will enable the person to give them over the Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Maril says the child wants to know, where's the table? It's still pre-meal. And the father responds by saying, well, today it's different. We can't partake in our meal until we discuss the Nisim, then it flows. And she says, really? What kind of Nisim? And the father gives him a whole background of Adam Ayinu and gets into the whole experience of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. So it begins with removing the table, something strange, and gets the children asking and interested and engaged in dialogue. Let's see the Rashbam. So we have the widest lines of the Rashbam and the line right before that. Vein oikes hashulchan. Shemitzvah hilakers hashulchan. It's a mitzvah to remove the table, because the Kaman, as the Gemara will tell us, ki heichad elahavi hakel tinoikas, to create that interest for the children. V'hana mila didhu. Says the Rashbam, in those days, they would be oikes hashulchan. The havalu shulchan katan of misha omer hagadol levadei. V'chein l'chol echad. Everybody had their own tables. Aval anu masalkan asakar. Our tables are too large in size. Jesus says it's a Torah cuddle to get the movers in. Every time we want to pull out the table, bring in the table, so it's done many times. So, by us, we don't remove tables. Rather, we're masalik the ka'ara, the bowl which contains the sheba matzah, marar, shnei tafshilin, which contains the food which is going to be used for the seder. We pick it up and we relocate it to the other side, l'seif hashulchan. And that's enough for us. That also piques the child's interest. Hey, where'd the food go? Says Rashbam, some have a minhag to simply lift the ka'ara, and they remove the basar, because we're meant to have the two cooked foods there, zeichel, pesach, hagil, they remove it. Why? Apparently they're concerned with creating the wrong impression that you're having karbonis here, so they lift the ka'ara, number one, but they first remove the basar. V'lav Milsi Rashbam doesn't like it, he says it's unnecessary. The Adam Kaman Basa and Tzarech Hakbiyah. The Gemara tells us later you have to lift the basar. Hana Mila B'Shasha Omer Haggadah. That's when we're in the middle of saying the Haggadah. Pesach She'avasena, we speak about the Karban Pesach. V'kivan D'Lo Matzi L'Meimar Pesach Zeh. Since you can't say Pesach Zeh, Im Hoya V'Moya Makbiyah L'Tafshel Shayibayada Nira K'Maglish B'Emte Mechayim. That's why there's a concern with picking up the Tafshel there, because it appears that this is the Karban Pesach. So you're not meant to do that. When you say Pesach, Aval K'Shemash Bia Ka'ara, but when you lift the Ka'ara, Kadesh Yaka Atinak V'Yishal, how does that relate to this concern? Right? When you say Pesach, you don't want to say Pesach Zen, you don't want to lift the Pesach, you don't want it to look like this is the Karban Pesach. But here, you're simply lifting up the Ka'ara for the kids. Heich Nira K'Magdish Kashim. In what way does it look like you're being Magdish Kashim? There's no need to pull out the meat. V'gam Hagba'as Achinam. Says the Rashbam, you know what? The entire ceremony of lifting the ka'ara is useless. There's nothing unusual for the tinok here. Yeah, taking the bowl and relocating it, removing it, and putting it in the corner, as though it's already post-meal. That creates an impression. The kids will see and say, wow, what's going on? This is similar to the Akir Shulchan time of the Gemara. You're cleaning up when you haven't yet eaten. That creates interest. That motivates the kid to ask questions. Today, different minhagim, some cover the matzah. That's also considered like cleaning up. What's going on? We need to eat. Why are you covering the matzah? Some push away the kara. In any case, the point is to have the child wonder, what's going on? Where's the food? We haven't yet eaten. And this will get the father to respond by saying, well, we still have time for that. We have priorities. It's Pesach at night. We have to first thank Hashem for the nisim and the flies, and it gets into the whole discussion. As we're going to see in the following story, it says the Gemara, Abaya have a Yosef Kamei de Rabba. Abaya, when he was a youngster, he's a Yosem and raised by Rabba. So he was sitting in front of Rabba. This was Pesach at night. Chaza, the madli takem kamei. He noticed them removing the table. Omerlu adayin lekachlin. Look, we haven't yet had our meal. Also, kama akri takem kaman. They're already removing the tables. Omerle Rabba. So Rabba was impressed. He said, beautiful. Patrasa malay manishtana. You've exempted us from saying manishtana, which was a standard nusach Chacham established just in case a child doesn't ask on his own. But here, you asked us. Let me explain this to you. We removed the table because this is not lunch. This is not supper time. This is Pesach at night. We have to first connect to the Yom Tov, relate to the Nisim. And he began discussing the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. Continues the Gemara, Amar Shmuel Lechem Oini. Why does the pasuk call matzah Lechem Oini? Lechem she'oinin ola advarim. The matzah is lechem on which you answer many words. You speak about Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim in the presence of the matzah. Tani Rami Hachi Lechem Oini Lechem she'oinin olav dvarim harbe. Davar ach, another pshat in the word Lechem Oini. Lechem Oini. Although we read it Oini, but how is it spelled? Without the vav. Oni ksiv. It's spelled Ainun Yud, which can be interpreted as poor. Poor man's bread. How does it relate to poverty? Ma oni shadaka reprusa. Just as an ani, he has a slice of bread, he doesn't have a full loaf. Afkan beprusa, likewise, Pesach at night, the bracha of achilas matzah is meant to be said on a broken piece of matzah. This, of course, is in addition to the two whole matzahs, as Lechem Mishnah is needed Pesach at night, just like any other Yom Tov. So you have two whole ones, plus a broken one that we broke by Yachatz, which gives us both aspects, Lechem Mishnah, two whole ones, and a broken one for the Lechem Oni, poor man's bread, which resembles the Golas Mitzrayim. Davar Ach, another pshat in Lechem Oni. How does it compare to the poor man's bread? Ma darke shel Oni, just as the practice of an ani who has a short supply of heating, of fueling material, who may sig vish to oifa. As soon as he gets the oven heated up, his wife is already preparing the dough, for concern that the oven might cool off quickly. Afkan nami, likewise by Pesach, we do things quickly to avoid chametz. Who Mesik heats up the oven, and while he's doing that, v'ishtay oifa, his wife is already preparing that dough. So it's a teamwork to get things done quickly. So you have three pshatim in lechem ein. Either she'oin olav darm harbe, it's a broken piece, or the way it's prepared quickly bizrizus. In time for a quick chazara. We began with the halacha of Pesach matzah mur during the Zman HaMikdash. Hillel maintained it must be eaten all together as one. Chacham said you have the option of eating it together or separately. Bizman Hazeh we have a concern because matzah is min haTorah, mur is midrabanan. Eating together would create a bittul concern. The sharpness of the mur, which is not a mitzvah min haTorah, will interfere with the tam of matzah. So what do? The Gemara concludes the proper way to do it is matzah separately, then mur separately, then both together, as we do today. We learned about dipping the chazeres and charesis to get rid of the danger of kafa, whether it's the sharp sap or the worm found in the lettuce. We learned about the chiyuv of netilas yadayim prior to dipping. You actually wash your hands twice. Once at the first serving by karpas, then because of the haggadah and halal, which is a long stretch, we have to wash again before the meal. We learned about swallowing matzah, in which case he's yotzeh. If he swallowed mar, he's not. If he swallowed matzah mar together, he's still yotzeh mitzvahs matzah. However, if you wrapped the matzah with a sieve, that's not even called achila. Altogether, it's not yotzeh. We learned the halacha karafuna. Only the Omer Haggadah, the head of household, who's running the Seder, has his portion of matzah, mar, and charosis. We had the story of Abaye with Rabbah, and he responded to them removing the table. He said, this is like Manishtana. And we had three pshatim in Lechem Aini. Kol tov and Atzlacha Rabbah.